This is the Sewing Circle podcast presented by Hanky Code. I'm Rebecca Vanderkoy, here to introduce to you up-and-coming queer artists and the powerful stories behind their work. Today, I am thrilled to have the talented Australian alternative indie artist, Mia Wray, joining me. This is an extra special podcast episode because this episode is coming out on March 14, which is also the release of Mia's debut album. So, Mia,
Yay.
thank you so much for joining me today.
Yay. Thanks for having me.
So, can you talk a little bit about the process of creating your album?
Yeah, it kind of just like it happened unintentionally. I didn't set out to write the debut record. It kind of just happened off the back of a writing trip that I did in London. And I wrote with a bunch of different writers, and at the time I was kind of going through something pretty personal. And I think because I didn't have any like friends or family with me on the writing trip, like the only way I could process the emotions was to write about it. And so I just kind of like cried on like a lot of strangers' couches and was like just sharing what was going on, because like every session started with like, okay, like what do you want to write about, like what's going on at the moment, and I would just be like, oh my god, like all of these things are happening and I don't know how I
Mm-hmm.
feel about it, I don't know what to do. And so yeah, I came away from that writing trip with about like 10 songs or something like that. And once I regrouped and the label kind of heard some of the tracks, and my management as well, like my A&R came to me and she was just kind of like, I think this is a record. Well, I think this is an
Mm-hmm.
album. And then from there, I went to go record the album, I guess, off the back of a little European tour. I got to support Maisie Peters, and which was so fun, and like got to, be on the tour bus with her and her crew, and like it was just like so amazing. And then I went to Wales to record the album in 3 weeks. And I just kind of like, I think I was a bit burnt out from the tour. And
Mm-hmm.
um, there was just like logistically, like a few things that just really weren't working in my favor or the producer's favor. Um, he unfortunately got sick, and then I got sick, and so it meant I couldn't sing for ages, and like,
Oh
there was a
man.
bunch of writing to be done still, and we, didn't want to like rush that at all. Oh, sorry, I'm just gonna call. Ah,
Oh, you're fine. No
um,
problem.
my phone on do not disturb. It's just my drummer calling me about some rehearsals that we need to do. Um,
Fair enough.
and um, yeah, and so like after when we recorded the whole thing, and there were parts of it that I was like, oh, I really like that, but there were other parts that just didn't feel quite right. And I
Mm-hmm.
think like it probably wasn't a good decision on my behalf to be like, oh yeah, I can record my debut album in 3 weeks after like doing a massive tour, like that'll be fine.
Yeah.
But it just didn't work out, so we kind of had to scrap the whole thing,
Oh
which was
wow.
really disappointing. And I felt like I had failed. And, it was my first time recording a debut album, and I just had a lot of pressure on myself. And my label kind of like assured me that, um, this is normal and people scrap things all the time, and, you want to make sure you get it right. And so then we ended up taking the album to this producer duo called Future Cut, who are a London-based London-based producers. And I recorded my vocals remotely from Australia, and then they produced it over there, and we would have a lot of back and forths over Zoom talking about production and ideas and stuff like that. And which I'm so impressed that they did such a good job, and I feel really proud of it. But I would have
Yeah.
loved to have been way more involved in the production by like being able to be there. Um,
Yeah.
so
That
it
makes
was
sense.
kind of like, yeah, that was the process of this record.
No, that totally makes sense. So you're mentioning a bit about obviously like some of these things had to have come from a pretty vulnerable place as you were kind of going through this process of writing things. So was that a difficult thing to write and then decide to share these personal things, or kind of how did that come about for you, I guess?
I mean, like again, all unintentional. Like I, you know, I don't try and like especially like with my music, I never try and like make up any drama to like within myself. Like I don't try and create dramatic things so then I can be like, oh, I can now write about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so with this, like I was with my partner for a really long time. Tell me as well if you can hear my dishwasher in the background. I'm so sorry if that's
I
too
cannot, so it's all good.
okay, perfect. Um, I yeah, I was with my partner for a really long time, and I kind of just maybe got a bit too comfortable, and I wasn't really like growing anymore, and maybe not even necessarily kind of being truly my authentic self. And so um I think like the straw that broke the camel's back was meeting this girl 2 weeks before this London writing trip. And I only had like two
Oh wow.
conversations with her. Um, but for it was enough to be like a bit of a wake up call, being like, okay, there's something like I need to address with myself, because I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And like I felt like I was like a little giddy teenager again, and hadn't felt like
Yeah.
that in a really long time. And um so then like I think it was only like a year later, or maybe even like 6 months later, I don't even know, where like, I'm starting to like release this music about this girl that I had two conversations with, and releasing music about breaking up with my partner, and having this like queer awakening, or just it was like I knew it was there, but I just didn't know how like dominant that part of me quite was. Um,
Right.
and releasing that at the same time as still kind of like processing it has been a very delicate balance of really wanting to let people in and, tell the story, and in the hopes that it, helps people or makes people feel seen, or, helps me feel seen as well. Um, but then also protect myself, and like just put up a wall every now and then, because I think that like I'm still processing it, and I'm still, when you're
Yeah.
with someone 7 years, it takes a while to process that. It also takes a while to process a gay awakening. So late in life for me, like I feel like a lot of people, they just like, I mean, I don't know, everyone's journey is different, but I think 27 is like kind of late bloomer vibes. And I've always been a late bloomer in other
Hmm.
areas of my life. So, I guess maybe it's on brand, but it's just like those two things are very big life things to happen. And for my job to also be promoting my personal life on social media and radio and on stage, it's just like a really weird situation. So I've got to be really delicate with myself sometimes. Sometimes it's really rewarding to share and be vulnerable, but sometimes it's also
Yeah.
good just to like, I don't know, just
Like find that
hold,
balance. between.
Yeah, like myself and just let
Yeah.
myself like catch up emotionally. Um,
No,
yeah.
that totally makes sense. And I feel like
Yeah.
also kind of speaking to that experience of like being more of like a late bloomer and kind of coming to yourself, but then also sort of like coming to the world with this at the same time,
Mm.
I'm sure has been challenging, but I also have to think that like there's so many other people kind of with that similar experience. So there definitely is something to be said for like kind of
Yeah.
providing people with like music that really speaks to like, oh wow, this is like what happened to me or this is what I'm going through, you know?
Well, I realized that like my experience by no means is a unique experience. Like what I have gone through is just like it kind of just seems to be the universal thing. Like I'm wondering if any experience is not just universal. Like I feel like everybody has had this like
Honestly.
day awakening moment. I'm like, okay, well, I'm definitely not an individual at all.
So that I guess that's one good thing about kind of putting stuff out in the world is you see that you're definitely not alone in what you're going through.
Yeah, totally. And that can help. Yeah.
Yeah. So, kind of talking about this record, is there a particular song that you're really especially proud of or especially excited for people to hear?
I think the one that I'm especially proud of, there's like close seconds and thirds to this song, but I think the one that like maybe holds the most for me is Sad But True, which is the one that just came out last week. Um, and we haven't done any promo around it because we had like picked other songs that I felt were probably more commercially appropriate. Um and you know, one of those songs is like maybe Not Enough, which is like a close second. And then, you know, the other singles were like Tell Her and What If, which are the real like pop kind of earworms. But Sad
Right.
But True is something that I think it'll take a really long time for me to get sick of that song or get sick of playing that song. Um, yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, with this
Yeah.
record, or maybe just with your songs in general, I don't know. Is your writing process like the same kind of across the board, or does it sort of differ?
Um, I mean, because I was with so many different writers, like it just naturally differs because there's different energies. But with me
Right.
personally, I feel like it's often the chords and the melody first and like the feeling, and then from there I can like decipher what the song feels like it wants to like what it wants to be about kind of thing or what the energy wants to be. But you know, the other thing is that a lot of these sessions and a lot of these songs were all based off kind of like a debrief conversation that I was having with these writers, like just telling them this is what's going on. Like usually that is also the process, is especially when collaborating, is like a very long conversation and discussion that like sometimes I have sessions where I'm like talking with someone for like 4 hours and then we go out and get lunch
Oh,
and
wow.
like, you know, and then we come back and in the last
Yeah.
2 hours it comes together. So more often than not, it's the chords or the beat and the melody that comes first and then the lyrics. And then sometimes it's just like a really um long D&M and then like a song at the end.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, how has your music style kind of grown and changed over your career thus far, would you say?
Um, I used to be very like folk pop girl with guitar kind of vibes. And like, you know,
Hmm.
I'd love to get back to that again one day. Um, I think that early on in my career, I put myself in that box very quickly because I just really was desperately trying to be something that I was kind of, but not fully. Like I was just desperately trying to be this artist called Gabrielle Aplin. I just thought, like, if she farted in the wind, I would be like, oh my God, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in my whole entire life. Like, I just was so desperate to be her. And, you know, as a
Yeah.
teenager, you're so impressionable. So, like, I just wanted to be that. And so when I moved to Melbourne, I continued doing that, and just things just started feeling like I just stopped feeling challenged personally, and I got comfortable, and my writing and my live gigging kind of just fell flat a little bit.
Hmm.
It felt like I was just like a horse doing tricks, but I didn't feel genuinely like challenged or scared or um excited, I guess. And so I worked in
Yeah.
hospitality for a few years and built up some resentment and anger. And and then one day I just remember having a bit of a panic, being like, what am I doing? You know, I'm 22, I'm still so young, and again, like I still feel like I'm young now, but I just was like, I'm so young. I need to really go for this, and I really need to step into what is me. And so then I kind of just went down this path of writing whatever I wanted to write instead of being like, oh, what would Gabrielle Aplin write? You know what I mean? Like it was more like
Right. Yeah.
what are things that feel good to me that aren't just me copying someone else kind of thing. And
Yeah.
and then like songs like Work for Me were born, and like Never Gonna Be the Same and Monster Brain. It kind of has more of a maybe a bigger sound. Maybe it's a bit more kind of grandiose or um soul, and you know, big vocals and big production, and just kind of really like balls to the wall kind of vibe. And
Yeah.
since then, like I'm still figuring it out. Um, I think I went from one extreme to the other. I went from like girl with guitar or girl that plays like soft ballads to like full production, especially those first few singles were like shit, okay. So since then I'm starting to level out a little bit, and like I still don't think that I mean I actually am really proud of this record, and I actually do really like it. I don't think it's my best. Um I think I'm still kind of finding myself, but you know, I think it's like a
Yeah.
nice way to like open the next chapter. But that's how things have kind of developed.
No, that absolutely makes sense. So, switching gears a little bit, you just wrapped up a tour in Europe, and
Yeah.
you're going to be touring Australia later this month for the largest tour that you've ever done. So, I'm
Mm.
wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you enjoy most about touring.
Um, I really enjoy community and camaraderie amongst my band members and crew, and also the community and amongst the fans. A lot of people like have come to shows alone and they leave with a friend, you know, like
Yeah.
and then a year later they see each other again, and it's like this nice kind of little like everyone's kind of making friends and everyone's getting to know each other, which is nice. Sorry, my dog is
It's
seeing a
okay.
bird telling.
Pretty
Um,
exciting. It's
sorry.
all
Um,
good.
so yeah, that's probably the thing I enjoy the most, and like also just losing myself in the music, and I find that quite meditative. Um, and I find it satisfying, really. I find it satisfying work. Um, I get a lot out of it. It really fills my cup, especially when I'm not focused on numbers or sales or how commercially successful the tour was.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I focus on those things, it kind of dims the light of why I actually do what I do. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm just really looking, and this tour is like, aside from visiting all of the major cities, like we're visiting a lot of regional areas, which I find really heartwarming as well, because, not a lot of people go out to those areas. So I feel like the people that live out there are always just like so keen and excited to like, you know, enjoy some
Yeah.
music. So yeah, that's what I like
Absolutely.
about it.
No, I feel
Mhm.
like that's a really good perspective kind of to have regarding all of it, especially not focusing. I don't know if you can hear that, but that is a very
Yeah.
loud siren in my neighborhood.
That's like,
Give it a
what, where
second.
about? Oh, wait, I don't know. Are you going to cut this up
Oh,
or is this all one
oh
thing?
yeah, I will. It's fine. Um,
Oh,
yes, I am in New York. I'm in Brooklyn.
oh,
It's
you're
very
in
loud
Brooklyn.
here.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Are
Yeah.
they just sirens all the time?
Yeah, pretty much. And I also live by a train that's very loud as well. So things are just
Yeah,
noisy over here.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's all right.
But yeah, anyway, I do think though, like as far as kind of your perspective, not focusing as much on like numbers and more just kind of about like the people and the experience and all of those things. I don't know. I think that's just such a good way to look at it, you know?
Yeah, totally. It's like, yeah, it's as soon as I like get fixated, because like my team like to get really excited about like all of the data and the intel on who's watching where and how many people are listening to this and how many playlists did the
Yeah,
song get on Apple Music or Spotify or whatever. And I just kind of have to tell them sometimes, like, can you guys just not send me those emails? Because once I get fixated on it, I'm like checking it every day. I'm like maybe refreshing it 3 times a day. And it's just like so
yeah,
unhealthy. It's the exact same thing as like, constantly refreshing your Instagram to be like, oh, how many likes did I get? And it just kind of
yeah, absolutely.
just gets really lame really fast. And so I'd be
Yeah,
lying if I said I did constantly fall into that pit, but I am actively trying to just like not care about it.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's a good way to do it. So, what song or songs, I guess, from this new record are you most excited to perform live?
Hmm. I mean, I like them all. The thing is that the live situation for me is like the most important, and that's why it's also the most challenging because I've met with a lot of um, uh, hurdles and budgets and things that make it hard to, put on my dream show. And so,
Right.
just just taking two band members and a sound tech is already just so expensive, and that's not even a full
I'm
band.
sure,
And
yeah.
if I had like my dream kind of setup, which would be like a full 5-piece band, I would have like live backup singers and not like backup vocals on track. Like they would be live and I would be able to feed off that energy. And like, I'd
Yeah.
love to bring my mates that play horns, and um then my judgment of what song would be my favorite would be different. But right now, like
That makes sense.
my favorite ones are the ones that people really like singing along to, just because I enjoy the community of that. And those ones tend to be like Tell Her and what's the other one that they like to sing? Um what's the other one? Oh my God, I need to like have my album out in front of me. Anyway,
Yeah, just
Tell
pull
Her
it
is
up.
one of those. And then ones that I just love to perform. God, I'm really enjoying actually playing Sad But True solo on the keys. That always kind of feels like a nice moment.
Yeah.
My favorite ones to play in a real kind of like satisfying, like get angry, let it all out kind of vibe, and really like fucking sing and like
Hmm.
not that I always constantly try and like prove something when I'm playing, and I need to like stop doing that and just let the song be, but I'm always just so desperate for people to show people like, guys, I can really sing live and watch me over sing the shit out of this, and it's just like I need to not do that. But one of those songs I really like is Evidence. That's always really fun. Because I just get angry and yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
the show
very
is so
fun.
bipolar, crazy. It's
You're just
everywhere.
jumping between all different types of like
Literally,
sounds and styles. And I love
it'll
it.
be like rock, like I got the evidence, dun, 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 dun. And then like the next song will be like a ballad, and it would just be like me on the keys, and I'm just like, this is just everywhere.
You're really giving
Anyway,
people an experience though, and I love that.
yeah.
So you mentioned, touring with Maisie Peters. You just finished a tour, you have one coming up. Are there any specific shows that have really kind of stood out to you over your career?
Yeah, probably. I'm trying to like go back through
I know I'm like putting you on the spot to try to remember all these
a lot
things.
a lot of a lot of the Maisie Peters shows were really memorable because her fan community is so intensely passionate about music and any artists that Maisie brings out. So people already knew the words to the songs before I came out, and some people had t-shirts already, and like I just find that such a lovely energy to feed off, to the point where I could feel like I could get so vulnerable. There was one show in Cologne where I just actually broke down in tears on stage. And they were so supportive and beautiful. And like that is the reason that I get to go back and tour Europe, because those people are still showing up. So I like that has been something that I've always held really close to my heart. Um, Other show, there was a show that we did supporting the Teskey brothers in Melbourne, and we got to play this beautiful venue called the Forum, which is like that is definitely on my bucket list. Like one day I would love to headline that venue. But something really clicked that night, and like we just really had the crowd to the point where they were like clapping and applauding like mid song, and I was just like, oh, like this is really good. Um, and that was the time when I could afford to have a full 5-piece band and yeah, hone in on that. Yeah, so I'm just kind of like always striving to get back to that point again. But yeah, those are the two
Yeah, that absolutely
that
makes sense.
really, yeah.
No, that's really cool. And also, hopefully, with this new record and more people discovering your music, you'll be back there and you'll be able to headline there in no time.
Oh my God, I hope so. It's so, yeah, you should look up photos of it. It's just like it's so beautiful.
I'm definitely going to. I'm very intrigued by this.
You been to Australia?
I have not. No.
Oh, do you want to?
Yeah. I would love to. I'm open to
Yeah,
going like anywhere. I haven't had like a huge reason to, and it's like a very long trip from New York.
it is a
Um,
long trip.
but also, yeah, I would love to.
I should.
Well, anyway, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join me. I'm so
Thanks.
excited for your album. I hope that your tour is fantastic. I hope you eventually sometime end up performing in New York because I will be there.
Yes,
Um,
I think literally, I think we're like nothing is booked in yet, but we are closely looking at visiting, doing like a New York and an LA show, like I think like October, November this year. So
all right. Well, if that
watch out
happens,
for
I'm
that.
there. So
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you
amazing.
so much for this, and I've, yeah, really enjoyed it.